In this video, we are going to talk about Pengu, some of its recent price action, the important support and resistance areas, and where we can expect the price of Pengu to go in the next few days and weeks. So we'll start by looking at the Pengu weekly chart. What we can see right here is that Pengu has been continuously dumping since July of 2025. Pengu went down about 83% from its high to where it is at right now. We've seen it get rejected basically off its all-time high. We've seen it reach this area of 0.046 twice, and it got rejected very harshly both times. So since then it has been dumping a lot, but then from about February or so, we've seen it starting to recover. It first consolidated, and then in the last couple of months, we have actually seen Pengu get a very significant rally. This is, of course, in correlation with Bitcoin getting a very significant rally as well. So we have actually seen Pengu get a rally of nearly 100% in just a couple of months. This is very impressive for an altcoin to do during a bear market, while most of the crypto market has been performing pretty poorly. Despite the Bitcoin rally, we have actually seen most altcoins only get a consolidation at best. We've not seen many altcoins get a rally, especially not such a big one. But then in the last couple of weeks, we have, of course, seen Pengu continue to dump again. So now the question is, can this actually be a trend reversal? Pengu got this high. Can it create a new higher low right here above this recent low and then start to create a structure of higher highs and higher lows and rally from there? So right now, we do have one support area right here. We have this one from June of 2025. We are right at the bottom of the support area. Pengu got a very significant rally from there back then. As you can see, we've had these massive green candles in just a few weeks. Since then, we've seen Pengu get a very significant rally. So can this happen again this time? I can't say that I'm too optimistic, but it's certainly not impossible. It is right at the bottom of the support area right now. If Pengu drops any further at all, then it would likely break down below the support area. Also, in general, I am not too optimistic about most altcoins at the moment. I think that since we are most likely still in a bear market, most altcoins will underperform Bitcoin. And in the long term, I think that Bitcoin will continue dropping further. I think that despite this recent rally, we're still most likely in a bear market, and Bitcoin will head back down below 60k again and create new lows. And if that does happen, then the chances for most altcoins to get rallies are very slim. And with Pengu specifically, it would not be looking very good, and Pengu will most likely drop down to its all-time lows at around the 0.0038 area. We've seen Pengu hit this area twice in the past. This is also a very crucial support area for Pengu. So I think that in the long term, it is actually very likely that Pengu will head all the way back down to this area of the all-time low and test it as support, potentially even drop further below it and create new all-time lows, especially if the bear market continues for many more months and Bitcoin heads significantly below 60k. So as I said, I'm not too bullish on Pengu in the long term and on altcoins in general. But now looking at the 4-hour chart on a shorter time frame, it is actually quite a bit different. As you can see, we have this area of resistance. This area used to be resistance back in February to April. In recent months, we've seen this area of about 0.007 behave as very significant resistance multiple times right here, and now Pengu is at this area again, but this time as support. So Pengu should test this area as support now, and this is actually a very significant area of support and resistance. We've seen Pengu react to it multiple times in a pretty short period of time, so I think that it is actually quite likely that Pengu will get a rally from here, at least in the short term. And if that does happen and Pengu actually manages to cross above this area of 0.011, then it could actually lead to a very significant trend reversal on the longer time frame as well. On the weekly chart, that would actually be the confirmation of a trend reversal and would confirm a higher low right here, which we have not seen Pengu create in a very long time. But I think that it's still probably more likely that Pengu will only get a smaller rally from here and continue the downtrend on the longer term. So in conclusion, I think that it is possible for Pengu to get a rally in the short term, but probably not very likely on the longer time frame. If we look at the chart of Bitcoin, we can see that obviously it dropped very significantly since its all-time low back in October, all the way down to February of this year. And since then, we've seen it get a very significant rally all the way up to about 82k, and now it is back down at around 73k. So I do think that it's possible for Bitcoin to continue the rally in the short term and perhaps head all the way up to about 85k, potentially even all the way up to this resistance area at around 90k. This was an area of consolidation for Bitcoin in the past. So I think it is possible for Bitcoin to head all the way up to these areas again. And if that does happen, then this could lead to Pengu also continuing the rally in the short term. So this is something that could play out in the next few weeks. I'm not going to completely dismiss the rally by Bitcoin to continue, but I do think that in the longer term, we are still very clearly in a downtrend, and I think that Bitcoin will continue its bear market and probably head below this recent low at around 65 to 60k. And if that does happen, then the chances for Pengu to continue rallying are very slim, and it will most likely head back down to its all-time low, as I showed you before. If we are looking at the ratio of Pengu against Bitcoin, then what we can see right here on this chart is actually looking much better than with most altcoins. Most altcoins in recent months have been significantly underperforming Bitcoin and continuing to drop. Many altcoins are at their all-time lows in their ratio to Bitcoin, but with Pengu it is actually holding quite strongly, especially with this recent rally. It is still significantly above its all-time low. It is actually consistently creating higher lows right here, maybe not so much in the last 6 months, but it is still holding significantly above this recent low and much above the all-time lows. It is still obviously much lower than the all-time highs as well, but it is somewhere in the middle and actually consolidating and holding quite well, especially considering how poorly most altcoins have been doing in recent months. So Pengu is actually one of the better performing altcoins in the market recently. The most crucial areas to look at are this area of support right here. We've seen Pengu get rallies from here twice, and also this area of resistance that is clearly also quite strong, and we've seen Pengu get rejected off of it multiple times as well. So Pengu is in a consolidation right now. It is right at the middle of this area of consolidation, and in the short term I think that it is very possible for it to continue rallying back up to this area, but I think that it will most likely not cross it and get rejected off of it, and at the very least end up dropping all the way down to this area of support. And I think that it's actually quite likely that it will continue the downtrend and create new lows and head potentially all the way down to this area from where Pengu against Bitcoin was back in April of 2025, potentially even lower. I think that the deeper we go into 2026, the worse altcoins are going to perform against Bitcoin, since I am expecting most of 2026 to be a bear market year. And if Bitcoin does continue dropping a lot further and heads below 60k, as I said, which I think is quite likely actually, most altcoins, including Pengu, are going to do absolutely horribly and lose a lot of ground compared to Bitcoin. As I said, I'm not too bullish about altcoins as a whole. I think that since we are still in a bear market, and historically for us to see an altcoin season, we first need to see Bitcoin approaching new all-time highs, as well as Ethereum, which is very far away from the reality in the market right now. I'm not too bullish about altcoins, but also structurally, if we look at this chart of total 3 minus USDT against Bitcoin, which basically shows all of the crypto market excluding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDT against Bitcoin, basically the entire altcoin market compared to Bitcoin. You can see on the very long term time frame since about 2017 in recent cycles, what led eventually to an altcoin season is this chart heading to this area of support at around 0.26 or so. The only times when we've seen altcoin seasons and the altcoin market significantly outperforming Bitcoin for a while is when this chart went down to the support area in 2017. Back when it happened, we've seen the altcoin market as a whole go 430% up against Bitcoin. Then in 2021, we've actually seen it drop significantly below it. We've seen it behave as support a few times, and then it went a bit below it. But since then, it also got a rally of nearly 400%. And right now, the chart is still significantly above this area of support. It is currently at 0.37. So also structurally, it has not hit this crucial historic area of support that usually leads to altcoin seasons. So I think that most likely we will see this chart continuing to drop further, slowly but surely, during the bear market. Maybe not even slowly, it could happen a lot faster, especially if we see Bitcoin dropping very significantly. Most altcoins will just absolutely tank. So I think that in the next 6 months or so, since again, as I said, I am expecting 2026 to mostly be a bear market year, I am expecting this chart to most likely continue to drop further, and only after we see this chart going down to the support area, then we could even consider an altcoin season, in my opinion. Even when the bull market starts again, I would not expect an altcoin season to happen so quickly. It will most likely first require for Bitcoin to actually create new all-time highs. So this could happen even in 2027, even further than that. It's really speculative to try to time the exact timing of this, but I think that it will most likely not happen anytime soon, probably not in 2026, and it might even take longer than 2027 as well. So considering this and us still being in a bear market, I would personally avoid being heavy into altcoins at the moment. And with Pengu specifically, as I showed you before, I think that there is a potential for a small rally on the 4-hour chart, but on the longer time frame, I'm also not bullish about Pengu. Of course, this isn't financial advice whatsoever, but I would personally avoid it in the long term. I would only consider getting into some altcoins very specifically, very selectively, only the ones who have a very good structure, and I would track it very closely to know when to exit an altcoin, because as I said, in the longer time frame, I think most altcoins are going to significantly underperform Bitcoin. And now if we look at the page of Pudgy Penguins or Pengu on CoinMarketCap, we can see the community sentiment. Out of 400,000 votes, we have 75% of voters saying they are bullish. In the shorter time frame, I could potentially agree with this, but as I said, in the longer time frame, I would not say so. In general, we have to consider that in this type of polls, most people are just blindly bullish. With other altcoins, I've seen this poll be even 90% bullish, despite us still being in a bear market and altcoins performing very poorly. So this doesn't make much sense really, and I would have to disagree for the most part with 75% of people who are bullish. If we're looking in general at the fear and greed index of the entire crypto market, we are currently at 31, which is slight fear. This makes sense since we've seen Bitcoin drop from about 82k down to 73k recently, but we are still not at any extreme fear yet. I think that once we do see the bear market continuing, which is pretty likely in my opinion, and we do see Bitcoin heading down below 60k, then we will probably see the fear and greed index head down to these areas of below 20 again, and we could actually be there for quite a while at the peak of the bear market essentially. And if we look at the altcoin season index, we are currently at 33, which means we are somewhat in Bitcoin season, and that Bitcoin has been outperforming most altcoins in the last 90 days, at least out of the top 100 altcoins. And as I showed you on the charts before, I think that this will likely continue and that we are most likely going to be in Bitcoin season for a while now. So yeah guys, in conclusion, I would personally avoid being heavy into altcoins at the moment. Again, not financial advice whatsoever. That's just what I would personally do. And specifically with Pengu, I do think that there is some potential for it to continue rallying, especially if Bitcoin continues rallying in the short term. But in the longer time frame, I still think that it is more likely for Pengu to continue dropping further, and in the next few months to actually head all the way down to its all-time lows. So yeah guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it and you want more updates about Pengu as well as other meme coins and altcoins and the crypto market in general, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.